Hello and welcome, everyone. Okay, first of all, let's do a little mic check. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. At least my my OBS is showing me that the audio is working, and we have Copper Shield and Fullcaster in here. Hi and welcome, guys. So we're celebrating our 5th anniversary today, 5 years of DungeonFog, and I am super excited about this stream tonight because we have so many cool things in store for you, and I can't wait to get everything starting. Before we do, though, if you have any questions, please type question in front of it when you put it into the chat so I can see it. I will do my best to answer all your questions. I might, at some bits and pieces, I might collect them and answer them all together. Yeah, and with that said, I would say let's, like that, exactly. Good work. With that said, let's get things starting. So, what do I have for you today? Well, apart from this beautiful logo, we have quite a few things, and there is a bit of stuff that I want to show you, do with you, together with you, and I should be able to flip my slides. There you go. And to keep things organized, I did a little organization structure for you so that you know what you are going to expect for today. We're going to start with a review of 2020, the end of 2022 to 2023, so from the last anniversary to today. Then I have a little experiment in mind that I would like to do with you. I would like to explore with you a bit what's the motivation behind the stuff that we're doing, why are we doing this, and how can we improve doing it. So there's a little, let's call it a keynote there. It's called Our Motivation. And after that, we will go into the second half of today's stream where I will dish out exciting announcements and I will do fancy demos. And yeah, and that's the plan for our anniversary, for our 5th anniversary. And with that said, I think let's just get going. So, the review part. I think before we can get into the review part, let's ease us into the mood a little bit and look at some of the amazing maps that you guys did in the last 12 months. I don't have all the maps you did there because you did a ton of maps, but I picked some of them which kind of stuck to my head, where I was like, oh yeah, I want to show this map. I want to show this map. And yes, the T2K City Center by Bree 8170 is one of those maps that just got stuck in my brain. It is a modern map, and whenever I look at it, I feel like, man, I should run a modern games at some times. It is one of the community spotlight maps. I can't remember. I think we did it in September, probably. So we presented it in September. If you want to get any of those maps that you're seeing here, just go to DungeonFog and look for the community spotlight maps. That's where I grabbed those. Beautiful lighting, beautiful scenery. I think the details with the crosswalks and the little dirt highlights or dark and light brushes make this look really nice. Good job, great work. Here's a new one. I found it today when I was looking for maps, and the community hub is a great treasure trove to just stumble upon something and be like, oh, this map is amazing. The Balduran Lighthouse by Wee 2353 is, I think, a really nice fantasy map with perspective, with those stairs, with the magic circles, with the lighting. I think this is a really great map. I will most likely going to get that map for one of my games, because I think this is really good for creating an entry, for example, if you do a bigger temple, I think this would be a really good entrance map. Right, so we had modern, we had fantasy. I wanted to bring back the Stonehill Inn, because we're going to talk a little bit about the things that we did in the past 12 months. And the classic dungeon style is something that we introduced almost 11 months ago. I think in December last year, we've introduced the classic dungeons, and we did an update to the classic dungeons then in February. So this is by Beetle, the Stonehill Inn, and I think it's a great example of what you can do if you want to have this classic feel, or if you're doing a little drive-through RPG publication and you want to have maps inside that are kind of old school. So the Stonehill Inn is another nice map that I wanted to kind of reminiscently bring back and look at. Then we have another nice fantasy map, also part of the community spotlight, the Shipping Warehouse by Boxcar Cat, which I think is just great work on the lighting, the shadows. I think especially if you want to do a little combat in there, and you have a rogue that wants to stealth in the shadows, that would be a perfect map for that. And then we go into more experimental maps, which still are mind-blowing. The one is the Woodworker Shop by King X Pickles. It's such a great map because it's changing the perspective, and it's still using the DungeonFog Battle Map Editor, but suddenly it becomes an isometric or almost front view of the scenery, which I find really creative. Yeah, it's not a map, you're correct, it's a scene, and super creative, super nice work, and a lot of fun to look at. If you check out Woodworker Shop, if you check out King X Pickles, you will see that there are more than just this map. He did a couple of scenes, and I really like the approach. And then we have been tricked. And then we're going from creative to almost movie poster style. Those two maps are still in the top list of my favorites when it comes to aesthetics. It's the Circle 1 Limbo and Circle 2 Lust. I think there are more circles available from Battle Source, who did those maps, and I could definitely see them as a movie picture, because they're just absolutely fantastic. The one with the flames, the lighting, then the clouds and the lightning strikes. It's super cool. I do, if I remember correctly, Circle 1 is actually a map that I took and kind of remodified to use it in one of my games, because it is a really great map if you want to kidnap your players into a different plane, and then they suddenly have to experience something super weird or fight a boss in that specific plane. And I think I used it. I didn't use it as a plane of fire, but something else. But it's actually a map that I've been using in one of my. Sorry, I'm very quiet. It's a map that I've been using in one of my games. Okay. Yeah, Battle Source is a master of atmosphere. I agree. He really knows, or they really know how to actually create atmospheric maps. So, are we in the mood? Are we ready? Do we feel the DungeonFog, the battle map vibe? Because now we're going from creative to statistics. Let's do some numbers. First of all, before we do the numbers, every year we hand out our anniversary badge to every account that exists as we do our anniversary stream. So this year, 766,534, sorry, that's English numbers, are going to receive our anniversary badge. So it's happening next week. Just check your account. You will see in your hub, you will have this beautiful new badge here with 5 candles, the new date, and of course the new backgrounds and presets, because I think they are one of the milestones from 2023. Right, when we look at those numbers, I think we can be quite happy with the result. We have grown about 160,000 accounts over the last 12 months, which equals somewhere around 13,000 accounts per month, which is quite good. We have grown to a mind-blowing number of 1.73 million maps. Not all of them are publicly available. That would be amazing. But for the time being, for the last 5 years, 1.73 million maps have been created in DungeonFog with the Battle Map Editor. And 10,000 of those maps have been made public. So we've grown our public map library by 2,500, a bit over 2,500 maps in the past 12 months. And I sincerely hope that this gives you the inspiration and the drive to share some of the maps that you have created, because that would grow the public map library and that would help the community to have even more amazing maps. Right. Let's have a look at the other things that have been happening in the past 12 months. We have been pushing our battle map editor from version 5.9.0 to version 5.11.5. So we did 12 updates, which is not very surprising for 12 months. And through those updates, we have introduced the new background system, the half-grid snapping, the map offsets, the asset pickers, so the new asset pickers, several UI updates, and bug fixing. So thank you very much for your bug reports. I think most of them are fixed by now. And we also released through the content subscription, so Tony has created 684 new assets. Some of them are in the recent asset packs, which is Mage Hunter, the asset pack that got released as part of Guy Sklender's Kickstarter campaign, Mage Hunter, Victorian Abbey, which was created in collaboration with Cat Clay for the Hammersmith Haunting campaign, adventure. Then in summer we did our Refined Fantasy pack, and the reception on it was quite good. So we are now going to continuously refine more assets to get them in the latest asset style, while we of course do additional asset packs and special asset packs as well. We have released a huge amount of new backgrounds and presets as background images, as well as combinable textures. And I can already see in the community hub that they are being very well received and they are working perfectly. The maps that you post when you use the backgrounds and presets, they look amazing because the textures work flawlessly with the assets and they create a very vibrant, very vivid style that I enjoy very much. We have been releasing a first pack and a second pack to the backgrounds and presets. We also have updated it quite a bit. So I remember that I just recently uploaded a bunch of indoor tiles, which I think also work quite nicely. So keep an eye out for those packs because they are growing. We're going to expand them. We're going to push more assets, more textures into them instead of doing several separate releases. Well, we've already seen the classic dungeons. There was a wall decoration pack, which, to be completely honest, was a bit of an experiment. I'm not sure how much you enjoyed it. I have my issues with it. I'm still trying to find a way to work them in. We have the Toy Maker Workshop, which was our Winter Wonderland pack last year, and there is going to be a new Winter Wonderland starting on December the 1st, which is our Christmas calendar, where every day you can open a door and you will get a new asset. And at the end of it, you will have 24 amazing, cool assets themed around something that's a bit Christmassy. Although I must say the Toy Maker Workshop is probably not the best set for a Christmas game, but it would work quite nicely in a Barovian Curse of Strahd game. Could be a bit louder. Okay, guys, I can try to ramp up my audio. What about now? Does it work better? We will see. I can way better, back to normal. Okay, awesome. Well, then we did tents and wagons and so on and so forth. I'm not going through all the asset packs that we have released, but generally speaking, I think we were quite productive, and we did a lot of cool assets. And I can see now that with the backgrounds and the textures and the new assets, we are finding quite a nice art style that is working very well on the DungeonFog maps. But we have not only been working on the battle map editor. We have also been working on the world map editor. To some degree, because most of you know that 2023 was our push year for the city map maker. But nevertheless, we did some stuff for the world map editor, which is also reflecting in its current stability. We've moved from version 0.5.2 to version 0.5.14, which means we had another 12 updates, roughly regular monthly updates that improved the stability of the world map editor, dealt with a lot of the bugs that you feedback to us, and we've introduced the simplified export. We have also released 887 new assets from the huge amount of Kickstarter assets that were created through the Kickstarter campaign, which is Space Fantasy, High Fantasy, Age of Sail, Cyberpunk, Space Travel, Lost Civilization, Wondrous Empires, Dark Lords, and the Dwarves mini set and the Orcs mini set. So there are not many assets left that were initially produced through this Kickstarter. So 2024 is actually a year where we are going to look into expanding those assets, those available assets, with even more new assets that we're going to produce for you. Okay, and then of course 2023 has two major projects. I'm going to answer your question in a second, copper sheet. Sorry, now I got confused. Two major projects that are in 2023 work in progress and are going to be finished soon. We're going to talk about them more. The one is the new asset manager. If you've been watching our mapping and out streams, our previous ones, then you already know what the new asset manager is, but I'm going to touch it anyways a bit later. The second one is we had a focus year on developing the city map maker for Project Deus, and I am super excited about today because we are going to look at that in more details, and there's going to be a lot of hopefully positive surprises for you. So stay excited. We're going to come to them in a minute. What I want to do with you is I want to talk a little bit about our motivation. We've been doing DungeonFog now for 5 years. I've started DungeonFog basically as a part-time job because we didn't know whether or not a fantasy map making tool will ever be sustainable to work full-time on it. And I think it's fair to say that we know that we're all map makers and we love making maps, but I think this is only one part of the motivation why we actually do what we do and why we do a lot of things the way we do them. For example, if you remember, it was always important for us to make sure that paths are dynamic, or paths and brushes are dynamic objects, that rooms are actually room containers that know that there are objects in there, stuff like that. So we could do just a very simple pixel-based drawing tool, but we're taking that extra step. And the question is, why are we doing this? What's the motivation behind it? And what's the motivation of the DungeonFog team to actually look at new things like the asset manager or other stuff that we're going to announce today. And maybe you enjoy this. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment. I have fun doing it. So let's try to understand together what our motivation is. And I'm calling this little keynote Chasing the Perfect Game. Right. So the idea behind that is that we're game masters, right? I think I would almost say everyone in chat right now is a game master, was a game master, or is planning to be a game master in the future. And the the reason why we're here, the reason why we're using the battle map editor or world map editor or the city map editor is to all of the above. And Lord God says, inside the mind of Till. Oh yeah, I'm going to do a bit of a, well, at least conceptual striptease today. The reason why we do this, the reason why we enjoy being game masters is, I think, because we are we're chasing the perfect game. When we're running a game, typically at the end of the game, the players go home or they log off or however you play. We kind of reflect. And I think we all experienced that games where you sat back and said, oh my God, that was a disaster. And most of the time, I would say, we lean back, we tap our shoulders and we say, that was a really good game, or that was an amazing game. But there are those rare gems where you suddenly have an unforgettable, the perfect game. The one game that your players will remember for years, where you sit, have a beer, and they say, oh yeah, right, do you remember that time in Barovia when I got cursed? Those those are the perfect games. This is my definition of a perfect game. If this game becomes part of the remembrance for a player as if they would have been there, that they become a story that will be told and retold over the times. So we as game masters, we are chasing those perfect games. And maybe you are like Forecaster and the perfect game for you is when your players lie dead on the floor. But maybe you are like me and you try to avoid TPKs at all cost, but you're chasing that moment of remembrance where people say, oh yeah, I remember, when was this? 2018, when we did this and that in that dungeon where we tripped over something and activated a trap, and I rolled a nat 20 and something amazing happened. So this is what I would call a perfect game, right? So how do we get there, right? This is the question. If we're game masters and if we try to chase the perfect game, then we probably should understand what the components of a perfect game are, right? And I did this. I tried to figure this out for myself. And I came up with 3 pillars. The first one is our own skills and virtues. I'm going to talk a little bit about those pillars in a minute. The second is our effort to prepare the game. And the third pillar is the mood at the table. So our skills and virtues, I tried to break them down, and I said, okay, the skills and virtues are what we inherently bring as a person to the game. Those are the creativity, the adaptability, and the showmanship that we have to run that game for our players. And when I say creativity or originality, I mean the creative spark that we have to do storytelling, to think about original worlds that we can create, to come up with great maps, encounter maps or exploration maps that are original, creative, and fun to explore. It's also, I think, creativity also plays to encounter building, where we try to figure out an entertaining, good encounter, combat encounter or social encounter. How good are we at thinking about NPCs? Might that be villains or quirky NPCs or fun NPCs? How good are we with coming up with NPC names? And so on and so forth. I think you get the idea when I say creativity. So we're not all the same, which means some of you are more creative than others. You definitely are more creative when it comes to storytelling or world building, because those are not my forte things. And I might be really good at map making. So those 5 bars that I put there, they should be a kind of fun reference of how can we judge ourselves in that regards. We're going to see how Till is going to judge Till in a minute. But let's talk about adaptability and experience for a second. I think it's quite straightforward. When I say adaptability and experience, I'm thinking about you're sitting at the table, you're sitting behind your GM screen, and you have to do quick ruling decisions. You have to react to whatever your players are doing. They might be saying, I'm trying to cast this spell, and ideally you actually know how that spell works. You are good at handling combat situations, so you don't have to look up the weapon damage, you don't have to look up the movement distance. You know all those things, and you can quickly handle them to keep the flow of the game. And of course, the player management, I think, is also part of this. So when I say player management, I mean that your players are different types at the table. One might enjoy combat more than the other. Some might enjoy puzzles. Some like tactical combat. So whenever a player comes up, you kind of quickly have to adjust and adapt to them. Yeah, that's true. There are hundreds of spells to learn, and you can, of course, I tend to, we're going to talk about that in a minute, how I work with that. But I tend to say, well, quickly describe what the spell is doing if I don't know it from scratch. But to be perfectly honest, we're building here not only the perfect game, but we're trying to build here the perfect game master. And I think the better a game master is with ruling, with experience, with adaptability, then the stronger his game will be. The last one in the skills and virtues block is showmanship and presentation. I think it's fair to say that if you feel the spark of being a game master, then you have a bit of an entertainer in you. You like to manage the story flow. You enjoy tension building. You enjoy the attention management on the table, so keeping your players on the foot, keeping the excitement flowing on the table. So it's, to sum it up, it's basically, it's our skill to not be boring, because the one thing that we do not want on our table, or the one thing that's definitely not going to end up in a perfect game, is if one or more of our players fall asleep at the table. then we as a game master probably did something wrong. Okay, so if we look at this kind of scoreboard that I did and the self-assessment, which is not my self-assessment that you're seeing here right now, it's just something to make you understand where I'm heading to. If you would be the perfect game master with perfect scores in creativity, adaptability, and showmanship, just with those virtues being inherently in you, I think you could, on the fly, run an amazing game because you are really creative, you're super adaptable, most likely you're really experienced as a game master, and you're the boss on showmanship. So me, myself, when I did this, I judged myself and I said, okay, honestly, I think I'm fairly creative when it comes to visual creation. So I'm a good map maker, but I'm rather bad at original storytelling. I tend to fall back to tropes. I tend to fall back to rather boring world building because that's what I know from movies and books. And whenever I chat with game masters, with other game masters, and listen to what they're telling me about their worlds, I'm kind of envy. I feel like, oh man, you have such a good idea. Why didn't I do this? So when it comes to creativity, I would judge myself a 3 out of 5. When it comes to adaptability, I judge myself only a 2 out of 5 because, as I said before, I'm not very rule versatile. I would still see myself as a beginner DM. So if there is something, looking back at the games that I've been playing, if there's something that I definitely not excel at, then it is being super adaptive and super flexible on the table without having to look up rules, without having to ask players to explain this, without breaking the flow to quickly think about a different ruling. However, there's a question, how long have I been DMing? I started in late 2016, early 2017. So math is failing me, 6 years. Yeah, so approximately 6 years. We've been playing quite regular. I would say, with some exemptions, somewhere between every 2 to 4 weeks with 2 groups. So I do know that I have, especially when it comes to improvisation, and that's the showmanship part. I know that I have learned a lot. I've learned a lot through Guy and of course Crit Roll, Matt Mercer, and Mark Humes. So watching others play, I think, gave me a lot of confidence. Confidence is an important part of showmanship. So that's the reason why I actually judge myself quite high in showmanship, because I know that when I start the game, when I run the game, I'm hyped. I can do this. I can do the voices. I can do the quick attention flow management. I'm just not good at the ruling part. So if I sum this up and put it into my chart, I would say that I can. If you would force me to end the stream right now, quickly open a game without anything else, just go for it, I would say that I feel confident that it is still a good game. But of course, no game master, I think most game masters, would avoid jumping into a game without even knowing what they're going to run tonight. So the effort that we put into the game prep actually not only makes a difference in terms of the quality, but for us as game masters, it helps us to alleviate our weaknesses. We can, if I go back, we can look at those things. We can say, if we judge ourselves here, we can say, well, I'm quite strong on showmanship. I probably don't have to prep anything for that, but I am really bad at adaptability. Maybe I should create myself some cheat sheets for the player spells, so I actually know what they might be casting in a second, or their attacks or whatever. And of course, when it comes to creativity, we can look at ourselves and say, well, I'm not really good at this and that, so maybe I can alleviate that weakness through prep. In other words, what I sum up as prep is creating maps beforehand, creating handouts, encounters, loots, random tables, NPCs, name lists, read alouds, music playlists. Whatever you do before you start the game, this is prep. And as we can see, if you put a lot of effort into prep, it will automatically raise your game from a good game to almost an amazing game, because you've done the work. You have been prepared for the game and you can react to whatever is happening at the table. Now, there's one important thing, that's why I put it on the slide here, and that is doing more work should not raise that bar. What raises the bar is doing the clever work. You need to know what you need to prep for the next game, and you don't have to prep everything. So it's good to know what and what not to prepare for a game, to actually be efficient in your preparation and to reward you with those 5 points in prep. I wouldn't reward myself with 5 points in prep. I actually reward myself only with 3 out of 5, because I'm a notorious late game prepper. I have a job, I have family, and generally I tend to be overconfident. So I'm like, I can start on Thursday, games on Friday, that's fine. Which turns out to be too late most of the time. And I run out of time. So although I could be a really good prepper, I'm kind of messing that up most of the time. That's why I'm rating myself only 3 out of 5 here, which means that with that score, I can still be quite confident that I go into a good game, and I might be bringing it up to somewhere around an amazing game. Now, you might start to ask yourself, well, how do we get to this amazing game? And that's a really good question that I've asked myself. And I think the answer is quite obvious. We're now into part 3, pillar 3 of the chase for the perfect game. And that is the game night mood. If you think back to the games that you ran, it's the mood on the table that actually defines whether or not you have an amazing game or even an unforgettable game. And when you look at that, having a good mood at the table will almost guarantee. If you're a decent game master and you do a decent amount of prep work and you have an amazing atmosphere at the table, your players are hyped, you are hyped, you're having fun, then I think having an amazing game is kind of guaranteed. And then there is this luck event. You can't predict that. Something sometimes happens. It's a roll, it's someone says something, it's a name of an NPC that you didn't quite think through, and your players are mocking you for the next years for this NPC name. Whatever it is the luck encounter that suddenly pushes your game into an unforgettable one. Right? I hope you agree with me, because that's how I think that we kind of measure and put together how we can actually work towards a perfect game. The last one was oddly specific. Yeah, it is. It can happen. Well, to be completely honest, I was actually thinking more about an episode of Crit Roll where they had a weird name and they were mocking Matt Mercer for the name. But I do remember that we had the same thing in one of our games. However, I can't really. Maybe someone is someone from my game group might be in chat. That you might remember it. So the question is, if we're hunting for that perfect game, if we're trying to get there, then obviously we have to look at our weaknesses and how we can improve them. We have to improve our core skills. We have to work on being properly prepared, and we have to create the optimal mood at the table, which I wanted to say, my approach to create a good mood at the table is not start right away. We typically take 10 to 20 minutes to just chat, laugh, joke around, share a drink. And then when I feel like everyone has kind of vented, the day has passed through the system and they're ready for the game, then we ease into the game. Then we start it, because that helps people to kind of get in the mood. That's all good, but why am I telling you this? A, I hope it helps you a little bit to reflect yourself and see where you might need improvement. And B, because the reason we got into this keynote was that I said, what's the motivation behind DungeonFog to do what we do? And that's exactly where we're heading at, because our mission at DungeonFog is not just to do good maps. Our mission is to create the tools that help you as game masters to run the perfect game. And I'm quite confident that we are on the right track there, because when you ask the first question, then you ask the second, what do we actually do to empower your games? And the answer is, we're trying to create through DungeonFog, through the tool sets that we build for you. We're trying to create something. If you look at that chart, at that scoring tool, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a little step ladder, to your success, so that you don't have to walk the full mile, but you can use DungeonFog to step on and then start. So basically, using with the tools that DungeonFog provides, and it's not just the tools, it's also the community and it's the exchange, you kind of can already avoid disastrous games, and then it's up to your skill, your prep, and your mood to actually get there. So how are we doing this? Well, first of all, we have our map editors. You were hoping for an escalator. Well, we're calling it the You're absolutely right. I'll rework the presentation. We're calling it the DungeonFog escalator. Unfortunately, that's not true, because on a ladder you still have to take the steps yourself, whereas the escalator would bring you there. I'm kind of taking away a bit of the surprising announcements later, so we're not doing that right now. Let's go back to our map editors. So the map editors, the way that we design them is that the artwork that you just have to think about position and composition. But the art comes from the artists who provide the assets and the textures, and the map becomes beautiful by itself. So as long as we push our effort into creating better map makers, I think we can charge our step ladder with a point in creativity, of course a point in showmanship, because that's why you show maps to players, to get the awe and and did you do this yourself? And of course, because of the way that our maps are reusable and refurbishable, and you can take maps from other game masters and adjust them to your games, it also gives you a point in preparation. Ooh, Copper Shield is already on the right track here. So the second thing that we're doing, and I think this was a huge success. I'm so glad that we took the time and that we took the effort to build our community hub the way that we did it, is our community hub. Sorry. It's there to provide inspiration and get ready-made maps. So that alone gives us a point in creativity, because we don't have to create all those maps ourselves. We can look at creative geniuses like Lord God or Incubus or Battle Source, Jerbear. Another one I really enjoyed looking at those maps, and all the other artists that you've seen, all the map makers that you've seen in the introduction. And you can take those maps and make them your own, so you don't have to be creative in that regard. With Discord, we already have a small amount of exchange with other game masters, but I think, and we're going to see this in a minute, this is one of the fields where we could actually do more, and where I want to put a bit more emphasis on in the next couple of, in the future. The asset manager is exactly there for this need, for the need of organizing prep work. And we're going to talk about the asset manager later, but I want to get that out of the system right now, because otherwise I forget. Right now, the asset manager is a tool that will help you organize your assets for map making. But the way that we have designed and envisioned that tool is that it can grow over the next couple of years. And I think once we are past the beta stage of the asset manager, where we've fixed the bugs, optimized the workflows, got your feedback in, then we're in the point where we can actually expand it and start thinking about organizing the maps directly in the manager, organizing probably even notes and additional material like handouts or even adventure PDFs or whatsoever in there. So the asset manager is a seed at the moment, and this seed is going to bloom, and we are going to treat it well over the next couple of years to actually make it something really useful for organization work around games. So as I said before, it should be an elevator to your success. So if we close this little segment here, and we look at what would happen to Till's games if he uses DungeonFog as the tool, with the tools that they provide, which I am obviously doing, then I get 2 points in creativity, which kind of pushes me to the top. Amazing. I'm now a super GM when it comes to creativity. I get an additional point of adaptability because I get inspiration from map designers through the community hub, and I follow the exchange on Discord about world building, so I might be becoming a bit more adaptable here. I have those beautiful maps that already push me up into the top echelon of showmans when it comes to game mastering. And with all the stuff, like for example with my map templates and my prop templates and all the stuff that I kind of do when I organize my maps, I actually have 2 additional points in preparation. So now I'm looking at amazing games I can look forward to. I can be relaxed and optimistic about going into a game. I've prepped at least 3 points of it and used DungeonFog to do this. So now it's completely up to the table mood to see if that game becomes unforgettable or not. But even with a terrible mood at the table, at least the potential for an amazing game is there. Question: is the intent that a creator should share individual assets, adventures, and maps? The intention is to do it in a way that does not turn DungeonFog into Pirate Bay. If you have the rights and permissions to share those things, if you probably have created them through tools that we provide, then you can share them. But if those things are under intellectual property protection from someone else and are licensed, then you will definitely be not allowed to share them, at least publicly, because if you just want to share it with your players, we will see. Right. Oh, sorry, they were asking if map makers were expected to share their creations publicly. No, of course not. I'm also not sharing all the maps I do, purely out of paranoia, because I don't want my players to go into DungeonFog, Google, search for Till, and then look at all the maps that I've created. I do make my maps public whenever my groups have seen them, basically. When they have played on the map and I know that they know this map right now, then I make them public. We're not expecting from you to make those maps public. But of course, we're encouraging you to do so, because that helps other game masters to have maps. Right. So looking at those boosting pills, the step ladder steps, the elevator cogwheels that we have, the escalator cogwheels that we have here. Look at Till's oldest private map. And we can do that afterwards. I'm pretty sure we can do that. I think I even know which one it is. We're not there yet. Our tools still need improvements. We know that. We know that we need to work on our tools to get there. We need to be, well, first of all, we need to release the city map maker so that you can actually use that tool. We need to improve the world map maker. We know that the battle map maker with version 6 needs a lot of improvements that will actually make the tools better and therefore add more pills into the creativity booster. We actually have to think about more ways to support you in adaptability and experience. Just having a Discord chat is probably not enough. We do have some ideas, but honestly, I would be curious to hear what your thoughts are when it comes to building a tool that is especially around adaptability and experience, a helper for a game master. And showmanship, well, let's not talk about our viewers. I'm certain that they can be improved. We have them on the list for version 6 updates so that our viewers become much better. And there are some concepts regarding the asset manager and the direct integration of a viewer into the asset manager. So there's stuff happening, but we know that our viewers and the integrations to third-party applications can still be improved. And that's definitely something that we're going to work on. When it comes to preparation, we're on a good track. But again, there is this bit more that we can do with the asset manager that then makes it actually really interesting. Okay, so 2024, we know what we need to do. We're coming. We're excited to start on all those things, but we're not in 2024 yet. We're still in 2023. And this means that we are now slowly going into the second half of tonight's anniversary stream. Let me just quickly have a look at the chat because I see that you're super active at the moment and I don't want to miss any questions there. Nope, looks good. Look at that. Coppershield is super active at guessing stuff from the teaser images. Nice work. Will you address my question regarding the devs? Yeah, if I find the question. What was your question regarding the devs? Let me scroll up, I think. Oh, there you go. Since some of the devs changed their place of living, how are they feeling about living in Austria? So Ilya has come to Austria, and I don't dare to speak for Ilya, but I think he enjoys it quite much, and he's quite happy being here. And Andre is currently still in Serbia, yes. And we hope that we can bring him over next year. I hope that answers your question. And thanks for the reminder. All right. Exciting announcements it is. Let's start with the first exciting announcement. Next Saturday, November the 11th, we have two giants clashing. We have the acting champion of Map Battle Madness, Lord God, facing his challenger, the Incubus, who will try to steal the title of the best map maker of the world from him. And at 7 p.m. UTC, which by the way is 8 p.m. Vienna, we will be on Twitch, and for probably, we're aiming for 3 hours, but it's probably more 3.5 to 4 hours. We will have those two fight over the map Battle of Madness. Guy and I will be co-moderators, referees, and the devil's advocates in this clash. And you are going to play a super important role, because at the beginning it is you who are going to decide what kind of map they have to draw. So I think if I remember correctly, it's you have to, we're having several tables, and you have to decide on the species, the location, the function, and the alignment of that scene, that map that they have to create. And every 30 minutes, we throw in another random challenge to them. So every 30 minutes, you're going to roll, I think, a d20 onto which room, scene, or challenge do they also have to incorporate into the map. If I remember correctly, it's 3 hours of map making, so they have 3 hours to finish the map. When the timer is up, they have to stop. And then you are going to decide if Lord God keeps the title, or if our new Grandmaster Map Battle Madness champion is going to be the Incubus. So be there, help us, enjoy it. It is, if you haven't watched the latest ones, the previous ones, there was, the first one was the battle, Guy Sklenders versus myself, and I luckily scored the title. Then 2 years ago, Lord God came and took the title from me, and now it's the Incubus who is probably going to take the title. Maybe, or Lord God is going to defend the title. We will see. Watch the old ones. They're you don't have to watch them for 4 hours. I did, and I'm going to do probably, I think it was a 20 or 30 minute recap of it. It is so much fun, and if you have the possibility next Saturday to be there and join the stream, it's going to be hilarious. I can only extend the invitation to you. Be there, cheer for your champion, or cheer for the challenger. I can't wait to see what's happening next week. So Saturday, 7 p.m. UTC, which is 8 p.m. here in Vienna, on Twitch, same place, and we are going to see who is going to be the next champion of Map Battle Madness. Yeah, you can be excited and terrified. Oh, I'm so glad that I'm the moderator this year. I honestly, I think I'm happy with having some of you having the title, because I can tell you the stress is just insane. Ha! I'm so looking forward to next week. I'm so much enjoying the fact that I can sit back and relax and see you guys suffer. Sorry. Yeah, Lord God is it's so funny. It's so funny how stressful it is. It's not funny, it's just stressful. Okay, let's move on. Let's do some unboxing, right? We all love unboxing videos. So let's do some virtual unboxing here. I have brought, for 5 years of DungeonFog, I have brought 5 boxes of surprises. Some of them are probably not that big of a surprise, but some of them hopefully are. And we are going to open them step by step and look what's inside. I can already tell you that every box that we open comes with a specific release date or a release range. So it's not just looking at shiny things and saying, "Oh, it's the solid stuff. We've done our math. We've dedicated our time, and we are convinced that we can do this." So be prepared for amazing things. Let's start with the first one, and the first one is this one. I already heard some guesses out there. So maybe you can already guess from this pretty picture what the first unboxing might be. Maybe not. We will see. I can, while you make up your mind, if you have an idea, post it in the chat. We will see if someone actually gets the idea. While you're doing this, wrong box. You have to look at the one in the upper right. The idea behind this, the reason why this is coming now is because we have spoken with a lot of people on the various conventions that we have been, and we've been approached several times. We got into quite a few interesting conversations about that. So at the end, we said, okay, we actually have to do this, and we want to do this. And you are very, very close to it. Oh my God, there are super nice ideas in there. Now I feel terrible. Let's stop you there before you get even better ideas than I can announce here. It's close to it. We've been in chat with communities, with universities and educational centers, and they approached us and they said, well, we would like to incorporate DungeonFog into our curriculum. And we said, yeah, okay, that sounds really interesting. So how can we do this? And we've decided that we are going to do this through a Seats Manager. So if you are someone who is running D&D classes or lessons, or is doing map making or world building courses as part of your community library, or as part of whatever at your kid's school, if you're someone who's interested in that, on November the 20th, our Seats Manager will go live, which means that you can contact us. We'll update the website. That will all, like, the onboarding will be quite clear, but the idea is you can reach out to us. We activate an education account for you, and with the education account comes a Seat Manager, and through that Seat Manager, you can purchase educational seats, which are a lot cheaper. Price is not defined yet. I cannot talk about the pricing right now, but I can promise you it is way cheaper. And you can then assign those seats to classes and to students inside the class, and the manager then allows you to if someone leaves the class or joins the class, to switch out those licenses and just purely manage those. And it is step one towards collaborative map making. Actually, step two would be then, if that is working, if we see that this is promising, then we will most likely make this available for CL, commercial license users, because some commercial license users might have assistants or people who help them in map making, in creating their maps, who might not want to share their accounts with them. So this is going to be, first step is going to be educational seats management. Second step is then going to be corporate seats management. And just to have it said, version 6 of the Battle Map Editor is actually capable of collaborative map making. So this is a thing. This is going to happen not very soon, but yes, you might be in the right direction there. I'm glad that you're so super excited about it, but I honestly, I think it's fancy, but I'm not sure if it is, at least if you think like of real-time collaborative map making, I'm not sure how viable that is. But having a map that you can kind of share access and not have to clone it back and forth, that actually is coming sooner than thinking of the scenario where two people log in at the same time and work on the same map instantly. Thank you very much. I am super proud of it. And I think, I mean, it's flattering. Knowing that the software is actually in demand for education, I think this is really cool. So we have unboxed the first one. Let's see what the next one is. Okay, the next one is kind of a cheat. The next one is, you might all guess it from the image, it is the Asset Manager. That was too fast. You already saw the date. So the Asset Manager is being QA tested at the moment. It's almost finished. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup that needs some fixing at the moment. That is making the Asset Manager open in one window while the Battle Map Editor is open in the second window, and then actually make them speak with each other. That sounded a bit easier in concept than it is in practice. But nevertheless, the Asset Manager is now being cleaned up and finished, which means that on December the 20th, we will officially do the beta release of the Asset Manager right in time so that you can spend your well-deserved Christmas vacations, Christmas holidays, to sit at the fireplace, lean back, drink whatever you drink, hot coffee, hot chocolate, hot tea, while your feet get roasted at the fire, and organize your assets. So Asset Manager has an official release date. We're proud of it. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be December the 20th. Right. So now we might come to two things that you will or will not guess. Let's start with this one. I'm pretty sure everyone recognizes it. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what this is. If not, excuse me. If not, then lean back, stay excited. It is Syrinscape. If you're not knowing who Syrinscape is, then you must have been living under a rock. Yes, it is. Syrinscape is a company that does sound, how are they calling it? Sound sets, sound scenes, and sound sampling for your games. You can mix people chatting in the background with glasses clinging and bards singing to create the atmospheric scene of a tavern. And they have a web player that gives you access to all the bits and pieces to mix together sounds. Now, for the real old school DungeonFog users, those of you who have been there in our initial Battlemap Kickstarter campaign, you might remember that we back then had the idea to do this. We just didn't have the time and the resources to actually create all those sound scenes. So we had a little sound manager system that we worked on, but we simply ran out of energy and resources, and we had to focus on the actual map making. So I am super happy that after 5 years, we kind of can fulfill the last bit of the initial Kickstarter campaign where we say, hey, you want to do sound sets? Well, here you go. Because the cool thing about it is that with the integration of Syrinscape, you can open the web player and you can either mix and mesh together the sound sets that you feel fit for a certain room or a certain map. And you can then assign this to your map. So when you run your games through the DungeonFog viewer, you instantly have access to the right sound set for the right room. However, this is, as all those things start, this is the beginning of a journey that I had a long chat at UK Games Expo with Steve Barr from Syrinscape. This is the first step into a collaboration that I think has even more capacity or potential there, because we ideally, if they have a lot of sound sets, like sound bits, and we know what a room contains, we might be able to speak to each other, and there might be possibilities to create a custom sampled room sound based on the props that you put into the room. Now, if you remember back to the beginning of our stream, when I said, why are we doing all of this? Why are we putting the effort into creating room containers? Why are we creating the effort of prop grouping and dynamic object relations? This is exactly why we want to do such things, because they open up for new potential. And one of that is to actually have a working integration with Syrinscape, where you can not only design your sound sets and assign them to rooms, but you can probably in the future also take a room, pass it to Syrinscape, and they recommend a mixed set for you. So we, as I just said, we have to finish the asset manager. This is top priority at the moment. The second Andy is done with the asset manager and his time is freed up, he will actually start working on the Syrinscape integration. And I am very optimistic that in early Q1 of 2024, we will have a beta release available for you. So that's that one, which means there are only 2 boxes left to unpack. How about we do the one right behind me? I am sure you recognize the logo, and maybe you have some idea of what that means. Chat is still super active, talking about Syrinscape. You're right, Copper Shield, it's GPD. So we have been already experimenting with this for quite a while, and we are super happy with the results. I just said it for Syrinscape, but the same rule applies for ChatGPT. We know the composition of a room. When you select a room, we know its content, which means that we can create a prompt, pass it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT then returns a nice read aloud based on the room. Now, if you want to see an example, here is one. This room I have drawn is the old library. And I said to ChatGPT, please give me a read aloud for a fantasy version of that room. And ChatGPT said, as you enter the old library, the appeal of its natural stone walls and stone-patterned floor tiles welcome you. Shelves filled with ancient tomes, some blue, brown, and black await exploration. Spider webs hint at the passage of time, and a solitary beam of light illuminates a noble chair and reading desk. The room holds secrets untold, beckoning you to uncover its mysteries. And when you look at it, it is quite apparently, it's using the stone floor to hint it in the. Sorry, I need my mouse cursor here. It's using the stone floor to hint at the general room description. It's wall and floor. Then it's taking the assets and obviously because I've placed a blue book and a brown book and apparently somewhere a black book. It took those hints, but it pays attention to the details, and I think David Attenborough. I would thank you very much. If you thought that would be David Attenborough, that's really cool. I was more thinking of Deckard Cain. I think it's amazing, and if you think about it, we as game masters, we either fall into two leagues, right? We're the ones who just draw the map, and when the player explore the map and they say, well, what's that room? You say like this, look at the map. You can see everything in here. Or we're the ones who actually write read-alouds for it. But then we often run out of time to actually do proper read-alouds. And then it's like you look into a room that has bookshelves and spider webs, which kind of kills the atmosphere. So being a map maker who likes drawing and having a button that then creates the proper text out of it, I think is super convenient. Let's look at another one, and I have no idea what voice I'm going to pick for that one, because that's from the latest map that I did for the Vicar's Abbey, the Hammersmith Haunting Victorian map that I did. So I said to ChatGPT, please do a study in a Lovecraftian way. Mickey Mouse.
The room exudes an eerie aura, its riveted stones walls seeming to whisper forgotten secrets. Oh, Goofy, the herringbone paquette feels unsettling alive with every step taken upon it.
Was that Mickey Mouse? So the lit gas lamps casts in. Sinister shadows on a tableau of the bizarre, an open Bible, a staring bust, the Persian carpet, and chairs awaiting unseen guests. Books, black and blue, beckon with forbidden lore. The fireplace dances with eldritch fire. This room harbors knowledge that treads a perilous line between enlightenment and madness. Nice, isn't it? It's really cool. Yeah, it is. It is. If you check it out, it's the new what's it called? Victorian Abbey is the asset pack, and there's a lot of Victorian style, like not so much the Curse of Strahd Victorian style that we did initially for our Victorian area. It's a bit of a more modernist setting, and quite cool assets in there. Couldn't even show off all of them. So the idea is that you can pick a room, you can select it, and you just click on AI generate. You can then choose between the genre. So you can tell which genre you would like to create. We're going to do this as a free text, so you can come up with whatever genre you would like. You can pick the language, given that it is supported by ChatGPT, and the length of the read aloud prompt that you would like to get in return. And this will be automatically added to the room description, like the room note in the editor itself. So you can quickly copy it out of there and use it wherever you like it. But this will also make GM notes much more interesting, because when you put your rooms together in a little compendium in your GM notes, it will automatically come with those read aloud descriptions. And again, as with all the other things here, this is the seeding step of what we want to do in the future. Because right now we're talking about the way that we as kind of visual thinkers like to draw maps and then get the equivalent of a text for that map. But I think we can all think of the potentials of turning this idea around and being a verbal thinker who likes to describe a map through a few prompts and then have the according map to this. Now this is just me thinking in the future. There is not even a roadmap item for this, but we know that this is really promising. And I think we all have accepted that generative AIs are going to be part of our future. We have to, some of us might welcome the AI overlords, some of us might be still a bit reserved over the idea, but I think it's unimaginable to have a future without them. They are going to come, and we are also thinking about the ways that we can utilize them to, again, help you create the perfect game. Yes, exactly, Forecaster. This is exactly the point. This is why we're treading very lightly here and carefully, because there are a lot of ethical implications involved, and we want to be really careful and make sure that things are properly adjudicated, probably, let's say it like that. It's a lot, I feel like at the moment, it's a lot of a Klondike, gold rush mentality around here, and I'm fairly certain that things will cool down, things will get structured, organized, and legally correctly encapsulated, and then I think is the time when we as companies can without having to deal with kind of guilt, can work with those things. Right, unboxing box number 4 has been opened. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We are at the last box, which by the image you all can guess what it is, but I think you will be surprised to see what's actually inside the box. So let's open our 5-year anniversary final 5th box and see what's inside. Aha! Now, isn't that looking cool? I invented water. Yes! It is the city map maker, and we have made tremendous progress here. Everything you see is directly out of the city map editor, and I'm going to show you a few images first, because it is getting late for some of you, and I'm not sure if you want to hang around for the final demo. So let's create some gusto, keep you hooked, and then we're going to, of course, we're going to explore the new the new city map maker. But that's not all. We're also going to talk about release dates. So, you're right. How could you not want to see the demo? I don't know. I want to see it. I want to do it. I want to probably crash it. Here we have a map that Ilya did. By the way, I think 90% of the maps that we're looking at were done by Ilya, who is becoming an amazing city map maker. This is a moderately big map that you can see at the max zoom out level, as well as a medium zoom in level. And it is, I think it's looking really good. We're going to talk a lot more about the city map maker. I'm pretty sure you're going to have a lot of questions in regards to that. But it is Yes. Filthy Casualty says it. It's a sexy city. It's really cool. Next one is what is called the Chasm City. The urban map. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, let me write that down. Here we can see another map. Again, this is even a bigger map in terms of city map, and it is also showing quite nicely that you can already get quite creative with general structural ideas. So Ilya designed this map to be at the bottom of a desert canyon chasm, and it is centered around those kind of dark rifts, and each part needs a temple to appease the creatures that live beneath in the dark chasms below. And here you can see, again, full zoom out, some medium zoom in. You can also see the dynamic shadows that are being created there, and the amazing lighting system that has now found its way in there. Question: what is the largest city that has been tested without crashing? Answer: we're going to look at that one in the demo. And no one has ever counted the buildings in there, I think. Right. Then we have some other maps. The one is, I think it was just playing around with it. Ilya showed me a map. We were actually experimenting with the new landmass coast types. And it is a really cool, let's say, regional exploration map. It's just a river with a forest and a road, but it still looks quite cool. And I think it's an interesting mix between battle map and narrative map that you can show your players so that they get a better understanding of how long is the distance that they need to travel. Question: what are the cultures and styles that are planned for the assets in the city map maker, in the city map editor? So right now we're aiming primarily at fantasy. So we already have the classic cultural, let's say, human fantasy buildings. We have a mix that is going towards dwarves, but I think it needs some improvements. And elves. We have already started working on elf constructions, elf buildings. But eventually, of course, we will stay true to the world map editor. And if the setting is in the world map editor, then an equivalent of that setting should be in the city map editor. And we're going to see a few things that are quite funny, because I actually did a few assets based on the battle map editor, and I ported them into, they have to be changed, they have to be adapted, but they can be used in the city map maker as well. Request: we need modern assets. Exclamation mark. Yes, we know, and modern assets are on the list. We know this, and there are going to be modern assets. Or the ability to add our own customs, also on the list, is going to happen because once the asset manager is finished, and once the city map editor has gone into its beta, we are going to work on integrating the asset manager, where you can upload and manage your own assets. We're going to integrate them into Deus, so that in Deus you have access to everything that you have in the asset manager. The asset manager, the idea behind the asset manager is that it is your global, across all tool management system for everything that you upload into the DungeonFog toolkits. Question: are Asian assets a thing, since there were some kind of Oriental assets? Excuse me. Yes. So we did a Far East pack for the battle map editor, and I had a conversation with Tony about that. We wanted, because we had the Far East one, now we have the kind of Oriental ones, the 1,001 how do you 1,001 nights? How do you call this? Arabian fairy tales. So this style is now in there. So yes, definitely there is going to be Asian style stuff in there too. But Asian is big, so probably you can help us if you're more specific into what kind of cultural influence you're thinking of. And here the second one is actually this is a map that is purely done with Keora assets, and we're going to talk about that once I'm in the demo, because Keora does amazing assets, but they work nice on close up. They don't work very nice on zoom out. Now, since Keora is a really busy man, and we can't just hog on to Keora forever and say, do more assets. We've started to develop our own product line of assets to make sure that we can, in the time that we have, and with the demands that we have, with the demands that you will most likely going to put at us, that we are not fully dependent on Keora, but also can work freely. Question. Will we ever have the ability to create 3D style maps instead of overhead maps? So you mean like isometric, like for example, what's it called? Incarnate does. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's not on our. It's simply not on our list at the moment. I think if we're running out of ideas, then this is definitely going to be something. I think it's more interesting for city maps, and it's more interesting, the isometric view is more interesting for city maps than it will ever be for battle maps. But again, as I think, I'm not sure if Forecaster said it to Killer Chandra, but this is a very different beast. Would apply as my answer as well, because that's a lot of work. Right. So before we go into the demo, let's talk about release dates. The Discord alpha release will take place next week. I don't know exactly when, because there's a bit of stuff to do, but the idea is that we're going to hand out through Discord another build that you can run, which we would call something like a pre-alpha or alpha Discord release, that is primarily there to check the stability, to see if you can work with it, to see when it crashes, to collect some crash reports or bug reports from you to make sure that we can finish it. It's not going to be the polished build, because we know that we need more time to polish UI, to polish some of the unwanted behavior in the tools. So on November the 30th, we are going to bring the City Map Maker as public beta into the auto updater. Our goal for the City Map Maker is, we hope that by November 30th, unless you flood us with crash reports or bug reports, and we might need to revisit then our release date, but I'm quite confident that we can hand it out on November the 30th, and we have one major update patch planned that is going to post-deliver everything that didn't make it directly into the November 30th release. But from our point of view, our goal is to have a mostly stable, mostly feature complete release of the what we call the MVP release on November the 30th, with all the core features in there. Then have one major patch, one major update by the end of December or early January, that will then tackle all the things that had to be left open. And after that, and you're going to see in the demo why I'm saying this, and after that, we will take a pause to the city map maker and take all the cool stuff that we've built in there and pull it over into the world map maker and give the world map maker the attention that it needs and the final treatment that it deserves to then wrap up world map making next year. Hype! Yes, I can agree. I am super hyped about this. Test until failure. It will be done. Very good. Question. What features are missing before you will turn your attention towards World Editor again? You know what? Keep that question in mind. Let's tackle that question when we're in the demo. Then it's much easier for me to show. I know that there is still a big task. I'm not sure. We hope that we get it until November the 30th, which is unifying our libraries. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Some improvements regarding coastline rendering, and some improvements. One improvement especially regarding layer management in the editor. So there are a few things that we hope to all have done by the November the 30th, but we can't promise it, because if something takes a week longer, it throws us off the rails, and it's all the criticals are in there, but the extensions then will be coming in December. All right. So before we go into the demo, let's sum this up. Unboxing was a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. In November, on the 10th, we well, I say the 10th because I wanted to put a date there, but it means next week, somewhere next week, hopefully by the 10th, we have the Discord City Alpha. On the 20th, on the 11th, I didn't put it in there. Jesus, I forgot. On the 11th, Map Battle Madness. Don't forget about it. On the 11th is Map Battle Madness. On the 20th, we will release the Seed Manager. On the 30th, we will release the City Beta. And if we haven't dropped that by then we're in December. On the 1st, we'll start, as always, Winter Wonderland, which means you will get 24 doors, 24 assets, and you have to open each door to get the asset. On the December the 20th, the Asset Manager beta release, and then we are in Q1 of 2024, where we will then finish Sirenscape integration and OpenAI integration, while hopefully by that time our Days development team has already shifted over in working on the final touch-ups for the world map editor. Right. Whew. Okay, so thanks for staying so long. Thanks for staying with me. Now I think the last part of this is just going to be fun, and that's playing around with the latest demo of Project Deus and explore the City Map Maker. Yes, thank you for the question. What's going on with the V6 renderer upgrade? Well, the V6 renderer upgrade is work in progress, and we already know that the V6 renderer upgrade is a lot of work in a lot of progress. So we right now, as early November 2023, the best I can say is I hope that we can start showing first results by late summer or fall next year. Question. What are the final touches you think regarding the world map editor? Well, first of all, biomes, definitely. Then we're not happy with the way that landmasses are created right now. I think we can improve that, and we're going to see why we think that in the City Map Maker in a second. Then generally speaking, it's you know what? Write it down. That's the second question that you can ask me once we're in the demo. There's another question. Didn't Guy say all stream attendees would be given a free PDF of Epic Locations Nature? Nice try. Right. All right. Let's go into, well, if he said that, then he didn't say it to me. Go bug guy about that. Right, demo time. Sorry, let me bring up, give me a second. Let me bring up this. Please open up. Okay, so one of the questions was, what is the biggest map that we did? And this is Density Grid Ultra. Hoping it's opening. I think this is the biggest city map that we did, and it is just insanely big. Yes, here you go. It's a lot of cities. It's a lot of buildings. I don't know how many buildings are in there, but it's just completely insane. And let me check. Yes, so let me reduce the sunlight intensity a little bit. That's too much, but increase the shadow strength. Do we want to adjust the horizontal angle of the shadows? That's nice. And let's see, are there lights in there? Well, there are only 2 lights in there, but we can quickly. Oh, that's probably not intense enough. Oh, that's too much. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that we need to finish UI stuff and clean up until November the 30th, because a lot of those sliders are either labeled wrong or have weird values, and we're going to clean this up. So this was one of the questions. Surprised it hasn't crashed. Well, no, not at that point. This is not the surprising part. I know a few things where it can still crash, and of course, what would be a stream with till testing stuff if we wouldn't provoke a crash in the end? But we're not trying to crash it right now. So this was the one map, but let's look at some of the other maps that we did. So this is the big city map. Let me bring that one up. And this is the first one where we can actually kind of look at some of the new aesthetics. Let me, no, I don't want to activate. I want to activate the prop shadows, but let's turn off the lighting for now. And let's do a bit more sunlight intensity here so we can actually have a good look at it. And I think there might be, yeah, that's good. Okay. So what we did is we realized that with the initial assets from Keora, they're really beautiful, but when you zoom out, they become hard to distinguish as buildings, which meant that we would either have to think about how can we work with Keora on rebuilding those assets in a way that it works on zoom in and zoom out, or what we said would make more sense is to use Keora assets specifically for like what we call low altitude maps, where it's probably a village, it's probably a small town, something that you don't have to zoom out so much to see the full village or the full town or the full city. And then create assets that are specifically designed for high altitude renderings. Yes, level of detail. Well, the problem with level of detail is we had that conversation where we said, well, maybe we should ask our artists to create different versions of the asset that we can blend in depending on the zoom level. Now, when you think about that, that sounds amazing. But I think artists would kick our ass if we go to them and say, hey, if you want to add an asset pack to the city map maker, you actually have to create the same building thrice for 3 different zoom levels, because that's how the system works. So you have to do this. So we're not going to do this. We're going to provide different asset packs for different requirements. And it is you who then can decide which style would you like best. Because I think it's also imposing to say, because we think the map doesn't render nicely with a certain artist's asset, that you have to be the same opinion. Right. So we have, let's just look at that. We have, of course, we have all the Keora assets. Let me just, I think there is Keora. So we have a bunch of Keora assets, which is completely underselling the thousands of assets that are in there, because we use the Keora assets to also create asset combinations for you. And there is a lot of stuff that you can use to populate your cities. But let's just, for comparison, let's just place this building, and this is at 100%. This is in the size that we got it from Keora. Let's place it here. We can, of course, blow it up a little bit to at least equal the other buildings. But when you zoom out, I think you can quite easily see that, I think this is even too much for you on stream quality, that because of the details and the love of detail this building has, it quickly loses its distinct shape. And that's why we said, okay, we're actually aiming for more conceptualized assets there. So the assets, the answer to the question that Circumceal90 asked is, are the assets vector-based or pixel-based? And the answer is they are pixel-based, simply because our tools are designed with the purpose of being open for artists to add in with through a marketplace. And if we would demand artists to convert those assets into SVGs or tell them to actually draw SVGs, then we would limit the amount of artists who can do this to probably 5. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I could name 5 artists who do SVGs for marketplaces, because we're not that rich that we can hire exclusive artists. So an artist typically does an asset pack and then sells it on Roll20 marketplace or the Forge marketplace and in our marketplace. So if we would go to an artist and say, hey, we need SVGs, then they would say, well, but I can only sell them to you, so they're more expensive. Right. Now, let's not stay on this map. Let's look at some other maps before we create a new one. It's work in progress. I've actually started to do Baldur's Gate, because I wanted to see if I can do Baldur's Gate. I'm not happy with that district, and I think it needs a bit more clutter. Also, I have to return the prop shadows on. But I think when you look at the coastlines and the water waves and all that stuff, and even here the kind of the way that we're doing docks right now, I think that's pretty cool. So we have all those different types of buildings, and you're going to see all of that in a minute because we're drawing a city from scratch. But I think this already looks pretty amazing, and I haven't been able to finish it up, so there's still details missing here. But generally speaking, it was, I think it's, with going back and forth and trying to figure out what to do, it was about 1.5 to 2 hours to create this map. So many questions. Okay, let me see. Were the buildings placed manually or by the automatic placement? By the automatic placement, but we have changed our approach on the automatic placement because our initial approach sounded nice but felt terrible. So we done something else, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But I did not place those buildings by hand. I decided to let the system do it. Next question. Are the assets... Oh, I've already answered that one. Question, where the buildings placed? I've already answered that one because it was a double question. Copper shield, thank you very much. So let's look at... Do we need to look at another one? I don't think so. I think we're ready to actually look at the things that we have changed, and for that I will simply create a new map, and we're calling this anniversary demo, and it's going to be a city map, and for the sake of it we're not going to make a metropolis out of it, but let's do it on town scale. I missed the question by Killer Chandra further up. Would the software also be able to take this map and automatically create side streets or alleys? Not in the MVP, not right now, but this is actually something that we have. The way we've constructed it brought us a bit closer to it, but the actual programming hasn't happened on this yet and will not happen before November the 30th. And depending on how far we get in, it will either be part of the December-January update, or more likely it will be the next, like we for some time now in 2024 we will bounce back and forth between world map and city map. So it's going to be part of a city map update patch. Which one, I don't know. It might be later based on the fact that we have to do world stuff first. So let's create that. Okay, so the first thing is, the first thing that I want to show you is that we have, I think, in our attempt to solve aesthetically pleasing coastlines, and to be honest, we did quite a few attempts in the world map editor, and I feel like yes, I will be sharing all those maps with the community. That's totally fine. If Ilya gives me the permission, I will share them out with you and you can open them and look at them. You won't be able to look at them until the city map editor is being released. I'm not super happy with the way that aesthetically, artistically, coastlines look in the world map editor. So when we got back to the city map editor and we said, okay, wait, this is a different zoom level, this is a different perspective, this is a different requirement. Do we really want to do the same? Do we really want to do the same visual approach of coastlines that we do in the world map editor? And although it is okay-ish, I think it's not great, and we want to have it to be great. Coming back to what I said in the beginning, it should be a helper. Our tools should be helpers to boost your creativity, like to give you that additional pill in creativity so that you can run better games. And that means that we have to think about how can we artistically improve those things by automation, which means that we have been looking at concepts, and one of the concepts that we've been investigating and that we've been speaking about in March was the semi-directional textures, aka the paths from the battle map editor. And we said, okay, we need paths because we want to do city walls, and we probably need them for roads, we don't know. So we've been looking at those things, and suddenly we realized, hey, wait, we have paths, so why not utilize them when you create a landmass, and then have those paths trace them around. Now, as you can see, it's not fully fixed yet, so there's still some nooks and crannies that need to be fixed. which is actually, we're aware of that, and we think this is part of the December update. But if you compare those two, pretty neat, right? This is, I think, so I'm super happy with it. When I saw it, I realized, yes, this is exactly where we need to go if we want to create maps that look artistically like a hand-drawn map. And they do, and I think they do quite nicely if we get rid of those little, let's call them artifacts, which we know that we can. So once we had the idea, once we've established this and we understood what we do, we kind of it spawned the consequences of what we want to do. Because why are we? So the question is, why are we starting with sandbanks? Artifacts are features. Well, the reason is that when you think about it, I think from an artistical point of view, when you create a landmass, might it be for a world map or in our case here for a city map, you're looking at probably 1 to 5 different coast types. You're looking at beaches, which we have here. Then you might have rocky cliffs, which we're going to add in a second. Then in the cities, you might have docks, which we have seen previously. And then there might be some weird things, like I can't think of anything right now. But most likely there are different kind of terrain types that end into water. By providing paths for this, we can, which is it's coast, snap to coast. We can do this, and here's the next thing. So I have been loving the past 2 months working on the city map editor, because it was a creative firework of ideas and realizations of which tools can we port over where, when, how. And now the mechanics are there, which means bringing them over and kind of sorry, it's getting late. Bringing them over to different tools aren't that complicated. So let's look at what happens when I say I want to have a coast. Let's make it a little bit bigger so we can actually see it. Let's do it with a better end cap. I sincerely hope that this works now. So when I do this, because of the toggle snap to coast, it automatically follows the coastline. Now, unfortunately, that one was flipped, so now it looks proper. And as you can see, it instantly looks cool. It looks like you have those cliffs here and the beachy shores there. And if we want to have a dock here, we can then just pick a path and say, follow that line. Now, why I'm so excited about this is because one of the things that's missing in the world map editor is the political regions tool. And we have been experimenting with political regions. I was always unsatisfied with them, because the problem is that when you draw a political region over a landmass, you want it to follow the coastline, but the next political region should actually follow the previous political region. Otherwise, you get this weird overlap. Yeah, I'm seeing a lighthouse on that map too. So by solving this, we kind of have already solved a very good concept for political regions in the world map editor. And also it is fairly convenient to do this. I can do the same thing here, of course, if I realized that I should have had something here. I can go and I can say coast snap to, it's still, I should go counterclockwise, but that's fine. And then let's actually try to do, let's do subtract try to make it as straight as possible. And do a dock here. Now, if I go counterclockwise, it will work. No, I did it wrong again. Also, I should do a fixed end cap. No, why? Okay, whatever. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a dock here. Let's move this out a little bit and let's, if I remember correctly, it's remove. Oh, come on, I want that dot. Remove. Well, there you go. That's why it needs some touch up. So this is what we did with the landmass and coast creation, and I think this is really cool. So that was the short explanation to it, and now let's use it actually to create a map for us. So we've been thinking about whether or not we want to do water bodies instead of land masses. Because right now, if I want to create a river, I kind of have to think in the wrong direction. But I think we can solve this later. Right now, if I want to do a river, I'm doing the first landmass here, and then I'm doing a second landmass here. And in the current build, we're not properly masking those paths, which will be fixed. In time. And then we have introduced the textures, the drawing textures. And this is where I said we need to synchronize our libraries, because when you look at it right now, we've built a quick widget, which is kind of a developer's widget for us that gives me access to all the textures. Now that's fine if you have 20 textures, but that will be a pain in the ass when you have 200 textures, which means that actually those there should be different tabs for props, textures, and paths. And you can pick your paths. Instead of picking a path by a list, you can actually pick it by a visual representation out of the library. So that is something that is going to happen, hopefully, for November the 30th. And quickly checking to see if any of you asked any questions. It doesn't look like. Great, let's continue. So, brushes. Brushes are also something that's not going to, I'm pretty sure not going to happen for November the 30th, because it's more like it's cleanup. It's not so much necessity. Is the way that the layering works at the moment. Right now, we have a very crude layering system that says we start at set index 100, and you can go above or beyond to layer them. But the regions panel, which you don't really need for city maps, you would prefer a layers view here, is not implemented yet and will not be implemented until the December-January update, because that's its own amount of work to do. So right now, if I want to draw, I'll pick, let's say, grass deco light. That sounds nice. And I'm going to brush in here. Awesome. And then I'm going to do at, let's say, 101. I think I don't have to do it. It's stacking on top of each other. So I can do some dot layering here. Also, I should probably zoom in so that you can actually see what I'm doing. And now let's do what we have done before, which is doing some coast details. So let's say that snap to grid, that's fine. Let's do this again. That there is a little coast here, like cliff, and then there's a little cliff here. And then there's a little cliff here. And let's do another one here. All right. So we've added some cliffs, and now we come to the next bit, which is roads and prop placement. And I can see a question. Will those grass brushes be available at world level 2? How do they scale on zoom out? Great question. So on the world level, we were afraid of using textures because of the size of worlds. And we kind of fell back to do just colors. However, we've collected so much experience now with textures that we are confident, at least confident, to revisit that question next year when we do world maps, because we all agree that having proper landmass textures would actually be much cooler than just having colors, even if we use those kind of height map color system. You can expect a lot of things are going to change for landmass creation in the world map editor next year. And hopefully those changes are just purely improvements, artistical improvements and user improvements. But the way that you create or draw landmasses might improve or might change. Because we've learned a lot of things that we think we can now incorporate properly. Okay, let's do roads. Although this switch is still in here and says place props, I think we're going to remove it. We've played around with it and we've realized there is a much easier and much more convenient way to populate roads with buildings instead of trying to do it like this. And I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to, as we can see, we have, let's start here. Let's start here with the road. I like the randomization because that gives my road kind of a natural feel. I'm going to do freehand with curvature, which means that if I draw it, it's freehand with curvature, and you can see that it sometimes gets thinner, gets thicker. So I can fairly simply start to merge my road artery system like that. And I can create, let's say there's a road going here, there's a road going here, there's another road going here because we're going to have a bridge. Then it might be like this and like that. And let's do a weird one here. Let's change the road width to 5 and do a little diagonal alley here. Come on, dock. Nope, yeah, now it's docking. And a diagonal alley here. Okay. And let's stay happy with that for now, because that is, you've all seen in the previous streams how road creation works. It works super flawless. It's also super stable. So we in rare cases where you have super weird corners, it might cause issues, but most of the time it works. What I think needs some improvement is the responsibility on the drawing. On the drawing side, it sometimes feels a bit like the steps are too big that it takes. That might be, I might want to have a different corner, but I can't get it. So there's definitely potential for improving, but generally speaking, the roads tool works quite nicely. So what do we do if we want to populate this road with buildings? Well, the answer is we have a prop tool, so why not stay true to the tools that we have so they are unified throughout all our tool sets, and instead think about how the prop tool can work. I'm going to pick the out of the watercolor assets for now. So let's do a mix of red buildings, blue buildings, and gray buildings. I have them now, but here I have a switch that says which mode do you want, single placement or brush mode. And on the brush mode, we're going to clean up the interface. It's super confusing at the moment because it's a developer's interface right now. But in the brush mode, there is an option that's called roadside. So when I start brushing now, every building inside the brush radius will be randomized through my selection, but it will be oriented towards the road. And nothing happens because there is a bug in there. If the rotation is not, like if scale is not 100% and rotation is not 0, nothing happens. So let's do this again. There you go. So as you can see, all those buildings, they cling to the road and they're randomized, but we with our brush, we control where we want to brush them. So let's, I think I should be able to undo it. So let's be a bit more thorough here. Let's say that we have only red buildings in the upper corner. So we say it's just red here. And then we say, okay, which is then blue in the center, which we can do here. And then we have the gray ones at here. And there you go. What do you do with something that is not a building? Doesn't matter. It's up to you. So if I do clutter, if I say, well, do those things, you can see that I have some sliders like the offset to the road. So I could say increase the offset to the road. Please ignore the distance units. They're completely random. We took a lot of those panels from the world map editor where kilometers make sense. Here they don't. So this is part of the cleanup. I can increase the offset. I can increase the distance. And when I do this now, you can see that it adds clutters. It adds clutter to the road. Nice, right? But I don't have to have the roadside switch on because I can also do trees or whatever. I could do statues. But let's go with trees. I can do trees and I can say they're not roadside bound. They have a super high density. That might be too much right now. And there is some kind of overlap. And we're going to put them on a different, I'm not sure what happens now, on a different set index. So when I go like this, it will actually add trees randomized in there. I hate when the gods place my house 3 kilometers from the nearest road. Yeah, me too. That would be quite inconvenient. Now, when you remember the maps that I showed with the wider grid, if I do for example something like this, and I want to have something like a, let's say it's kind of a workers district. It's very unorganized. It's poor streets. It's a bit more chaotic than the proper village part here. And I go and I say, okay, let's do some straw houses and let's only use the really small straw houses for that. Yeah, I think those are the smallest ones. I'm going to place them roadside. So then they're going to appear roadside now, which is very organized for now. But now I can go in and say, okay, do not do roadside with a higher density and high overlap. Let's do some random rotation in there. And when I fill this up, that's a lot of buildings. Probably shouldn't have done that one. Let's reduce the density a little bit and the overlap a little bit. When I fill this up, it gets to an interesting, it's still too much. I will have to play around with it, but I can always manually go in and clean up a little bit. Also, the random rotation could have been a bit more. And then I can go in with my there should be a dirt crack brush. And I can fill that up with crack. Let's increase opacity a bit. And let's get rid of those overlaps here. And there you go. And now I can, of course, go in, put clutter, put trees and stuff like that in there. So the reason why we did that approach is because it's much easier for us to do this through the prop library, which is already there, which kind of makes sense. And it's also it's a founding brick to the district tool that you've been asking beforehand, the district tool, where we can say, okay, wait, if that works, if we can distribute those buildings properly, and I think it already works. It is a lot of user tweaking involved where we can help and optimize by giving kind of defaults for you. But then all we need to do is exactly like presets, is you take a district. So you create an outline, we populate it with roads, and then instead of trying to find the algorithms to place a lot of buildings and clutter alongside the roads, we take the spaces between the roads and we fill those up with the assets that you like, which makes the approach to the district tool much easier for us. Would I be able to pre-create a set of properties for the prop brush? For example, a setting for main roads, allies, districts. Yes, I think we are going to do something in that regards, and I feel like it would be even cooler if you could then create and define your own presets. So I like the idea a lot. This is definitely going onto the wish list for us. Yes, Kilashandra, we will provide presets for you, and then eventually you will be able to define those presets and create your own presets for yourself. Okay, so that building here is bugging me a lot. Right. So let's talk. So we've talked about landmass, coasts, prop brushes, and all the changes to the brushes here. Let's just continue. Okay, roads we've done. Paths. Well, let's just add, for the sake of it, a stone bridge. Hey, there's a building there. I can't place my stone bridge here. Stone bridge probably is easier as a point click straight. And straight. Oh, shit, I forgot to turn off snap to coast. And the bridge doesn't have to be thus far. So let's put it here. And then let's put the road up here. I think this looks pretty cool. So the way that they merge is already quite nice. So we can do a road here, move the road a little bit into the stone bridge. And there's some funny things you can do with the snap to coast, because we could actually say that this part is snap to coast is walled off by a city wall. And now we just need to There's my tower. Up, single prop. Yeah, come here. Let's just place some towers here. Okay. So we've done brushes. Well, labels are labels. There's nothing new. This is Old Town Bridge. Let's put that here. So we now have a label for that. The eraser is quite useful. I mean, there's a relic in there. We're going to remove that. But the prop eraser is quite helpful to actually follow along a line or go into details and erase props in there. And I see your question, Killer Chandra. I will answer it in a second. Which means now we can talk about the 3 tools left, which is the lights tool. And then we have post effects. Ooh, what's that? And the global light settings. We're going to look at them in a minute. Question, how will we access the city map editor from the world builder? So once the city map editor is released, in other words, once we're back to the world map editor, we will actually do map linking. That means that while you're in the world map editor and you place a city or you select an icon on the world map, you can link it to a specific map, and you can say when I double click or when I click open or whatsoever on that map, then I will be transferred to the other map. There are more advanced ideas too, which we've been discussed, like defining an entry point, and an entry zoom level, or an exit point, an exit zoom level, and stuff like that. We will see how versatile that is, how useful that is. The idea, however, is there was even an idea that when you zoom in close onto a city, it instantly loads the city map, the according one, or if the city does not have one, it opens an empty map. But I think that might be quite inconvenient when you accidentally zoom on a city map while you're on a city while you're in a world map. And also, I think this is mainly a question for the viewer versions, where we say, okay, you can now create a viewer of the maps for your players, and not so much a question of editing them. I'm not sure. We might see. But I feel like I don't really see the need of drawing while I'm working on my world map. I'm not sure if I really want to click on a city icon and be suddenly in a city. Now I'm drawing the city map. I want to go back into the world map and continue world map drawing. Not sure how helpful that actually is. Oh, what the? Why is my stream elements doing some weird stuff here? I have no idea. So apologies for the weird stream elements messages. I have no idea how to turn them off. I will not deal with that right now because I want to do a city map. You just ignore them. Right. So, light sources. If I turn that on, well, first of all, this is a bug. Usually the shadows should be there already. But we can turn on and off prop shadows. And I can turn on cloud shadows, which I think is not doing a lot right now because it's kind of bugged. But there should be an option where shadows casts clouds onto the land. I can, of course, adjust the shadow angle. Right now, we only have those 2 sliders. They feel a bit inconvenient. I would love to have something like Photoshop has, where you actually have a radial adjustment from where does the sun come, and then have a kind of a height or angle slider for how steep does the shadows come in. Because right now you can kind of adjust the vertical angle to some degree, and then the horizontal angle on a different degree, which is fine. I think I think if you play around with it, you quickly get used to it. But I know that we can probably improve it in the future. So shadow softness, if we turn it down, it's very steep shadows. I like that. That looks quite good. We've split it into global settings that are just affecting the total light on the map. You're bombing me with questions. That's great. I love it. Let's deal with them. Any updates on Foundry and World Anvil integration? No, not yet. Unfortunately, no. Like, we finished those tools now, and you can export them as PNGs and JPEGs, which allows you to then upload them or import them in Foundry or in World Anvil. Having handover APIs for World Anvil makes even more sense than for Foundry, because, well, the light sources, so we will definitely have a UVTT export format for those maps as well, because you want to have the light sources. But apart from that, teach me, tell me if I'm wrong, but a city map does not have the same requirements as a battle map in Foundry, because a battle map in Foundry might need walls and light blocking, which simply are not there for city maps. So I'm not sure if a Foundry, if apart from light sources, there's anything else that makes it exclusively important to have a UVTT format. We're doing it anyways because we like the UVTT format, but I'm not sure if I can actually think of different requirements than that. For World Anvil, there's a lot more that we can do for World Anvil integration. However, I'm not sure if the APIs already exist for that. But having nodes that you can, or like markers that you can put on your map, this is something that World Anvil specifically does, where you can have those markers on the maps. So having a JSON format where we can hand over to World Anvil the map with the markers and the text that you've entered here, I think that makes a lot of sense. Exactly, light sources are mostly for line of sight, which isn't really useful for city map maker. Yeah, okay. Question, will the Great GM Deus training video be starting as these feature betas go live, or will it wait for the official full release? We have been debating this, and the reason we've been holding back on the world map editor is simply because we know that there are going to be major UI changes. So it would be such a waste to ask Guy now to create tutorial videos when the content of the video will definitely change. Now for the city map maker, after, so we will definitely wait until the major feedback wave that we get, like we're expecting when we hand this out in November, we're expecting to have collected a lot of user feedback by the start of January. And depending on the amount and let's say the spectrum of what we get in that feedback will then give us a go, because I think for the city map maker it would make sense to start with the videos, but I want to wait to see how the feedback is. Any update on the collaboration with Hammerdog Games for Dinoa or Dead Horse Sonata? So I've met Hammerdog Games on the UK Games Expo, and we had a chat. He said that he is about to come back to Dinoa in probably this winter. So honestly, I expect some progress there by the beginning of next year. I don't know, but we had a chat. We're in contact, and we had a chat on UK Games Expo. I'm pretty sure we'll meet on UK Games Expo next year, but most likely we will have we will be in touch before that. So technically, it's he said he would like to wait for our assets to be complete to then check which assets are missing for his setting, which is, I think, quite reasonable. Now with most likely end of year, early Q1 next year, we will have finished all the assets that are part of the Kickstarter, which then gives Danny the time to actually look at the assets available and come up with a list of required assets that he would like to see. So I think that's the next thing that happens. Now, regarding Dead House Sonata, unfortunately, we have, for the past 2 years, we haven't heard anything new. That's the reason why Keora then decided to do his Dark Lord asset pack, because we just don't know what is happening at Dead House Sonata, and we will see if they ever come and contact us and say, hey, where are you? What's going on? Then we will definitely pick up the conversation and continue the work. But right now, I simply don't know. I can't give you an answer there. Where was I? Right, light sources. Okay. So let's look at the light source tool. I can pick a light source, and I can turn on and off the light source checkbox. If I do that, I can then, of course, pick a specific color for my light source, and then I can work on the radius and intensity, which is a terrible color. Let's go for this. Much better. And I can place down my light sources. Now, here's an interesting thing. If I place the light source, let's say, on top of that building, it will actually be on top of that building, which is something that we did right now, but we will hopefully be able to change later, because right now, all light sources are within a global setting. So if I want to have the light sources be really shining out of the windows, I go into my global settings and I turn on the occlusion, which now renders the light beneath the buildings. What we would like to see, however, is that this is a setting per light source. So some lights are on top, some lights are on bottom, and this is a property of the light source and not of the global map setting. Question: have the symbol assets from Symbolicon been added? So here's an interesting one. We are currently in the process of finishing up the assets of Symbolicon for the battle map editor, and we will then port over the symbols from Symbolicon into world maps and city maps starting next year. So kind of the idea is we're finishing off all Keora assets, and then we're adding all the Symbolicon stuff. Yes, I agree. Directional light, or at least controllable light sources like cones, would be really interesting as well. Okay, so we have light sources, we have shadows. So let's look at the post effect. This is pretty experimental. I got the latest post effect built a couple of hours ago. And as you can see, there are a lot of settings here. Not all of them will be available to you, because I think we can kind of unify and ease them up a little bit in the future. What do we have right now? Well, of course, we have base settings like contrast and saturation. So you can actually do something like that. I think that looks pretty cool, especially if you want to go in those kind of Mike Schley-ish old school styles, which also is our first prototype. Sorry, there was a question. You haven't answered my question about the walls above. About the path assets. Are the assets for
dock walls like a half wall that fades into transparency? That's a great question, but I'm not sure what you mean. Are there assets for dock walls, like a half wall that fades?
Well, yes, there are assets for dock walls. Like, you mean water docks, right? That was the one I was failing before. Let me try it again. Here you go. You have dock and snap to coast, and let's hope that this works. Okay, so here you have that, and it is, maybe I should have. I think it's fine. Oops, stop, whatever you're doing. So this is how it looks right now. Unfortunately, I cannot select my path right now properly and adjust the size. That's going to be fixed. But this is how docks would look. So if I go in with my brush and I say, okay, actually, I want that to be more, I think the softness is fine, opacity is fine too. I want this to be more stony, then this works. However, offset and details of the dock is still work in progress. So it shouldn't be, it should actually get the full texture, but it's not getting the full texture at the moment. So there's still some stuff that we need to improve, but you can do ship docks already. So let's look at the next effect that we have on the post effect scale, and that is vignette. So vignette is very prototypey at the moment because the idea of vignette is that you can pick different vignette types. Right now we can only do a black vignette. And if I increase the vignette strength, we will see that it kind of adds to the scenery, and then I can adjust the inner radius, the outer radius, and the curvature to create vignettes. Now again, with black, it's artistically, it might be viable for some use cases, but I think for most use cases it would be much cooler if the black would actually be parchment, and you could then or even transparent, right? If you could vignette the map image from image to transparent, that would be really cool, because then you can take this and use it as whatever you want to do in your publications, or you add it as a handout to your players that already looks like vintage. So the black one might be useful in some instances, but the concept of adding a vignette and adjusting it, I think, will become pretty cool. Because the same goes for like border frames, design border frames that you want to have, like where you pick a specific border frame. For now, we're thinking of doing border frames as paths, but we're not sure yet. So that's vignette. I'll turn it off for now because it bugs me a bit. Bouquet, I think that's a really fun one. However, playing with it is pretty tedious at the moment because we don't have proper UI for it, like stage interaction UI for it. So I'll try to do my best to actually create a bouquet effect for you. Ha! There you go. So look at that. Isn't that pretty neat? It automatically adds a complete new level of dimensionality to it. Let me adjust the position a bit more. Let's do more strength. Let's make it. Whoa. So if you're completely drunk, if your party leaves the tavern, is completely drunk, this is the map you can give them, where you can tell them, okay, find your way home, and they will be like, what? But artistically, once we have some presets for it, where you can adjust this, I think this is a pretty cool thing. Not for such a small town map. There it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you want to highlight a certain building or a certain district on a map, and the surroundings not so important, I think this is an absolutely viable and cool post effect tool. And now that we have the post effects in there, I can think of a lot more post effects that we can add later on. All right. So export, let's do, well, it's a shitty map. But let's do an advanced export so I can actually focus on the part that I want to export, which is that one. And there you go, and export map. Not sure if you're seeing it. I get the where do you want to save the map window, demo map, save, and it's exporting it. And when I open it, let me just show you how it looks so you've seen it. Do I remember how it was called? There you go. It exports super nice, and you have and you have a ton of settings and resolution settings, so you can export really big maps with a lot of detail to zoom in, which means that you could, which I have never experienced. Well, maybe for chases, that would be interesting. If you want to do a chase sequence through a city where you actually want to zoom in on the road and then follow with your kind of VTT camera where they run and make decisions, like quick decision, roll a D6. If it's a straight roll, then you turn left. If it's like the opposite of straight, I have no idea. You turn into the other direction. So 1 to 3 turn left, 4 to 6 turn right, something like that. That would be fun. All right. Let me see. Next up, you need to add carriage simulation and complete. Yeah, that's true. I honestly, we've been looking at our maps, especially the super big ones. Let me show you the density grid with the crack. So this one, there's also a bouquet effect active at the moment, which I am going to turn off for now. But to make it look good, I'm going to turn prop shadows back on, but I'm going to turn the lights off. So this is, I think this is an amazing map, and Ilya did a really good job. And on like, if you would purchase an adventure, right? If that would be part of a book or part of a publication or part of something that you show to your players, what you would most likely see is that those areas are colored differently in regards to the different district types. So we are aware of that, and there's actually a not really good working prototype of that already in here, where you can select and do a color adjustment. However, I'm not sure if it is actually working at the moment. Yes, it is. I have colorized the golden tops here, and I could of course colorize the stone and so on too. But what I'm saying is, this is tedious if you want to do it on a single prop adjustment. It is much more convenient if you kind of, oh, sorry, I was scaling up a building. I didn't want to do that. Brush radius 200. So if I could just select buildings here and then give them a specific color, but with a proper brush layers a system established, I think the easiest way would be to just brush a color over it and then say, okay, there's a certain kind of color multiplication to it. However, that's not really what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is this looks good from this perspective. But when you zoom in, stop, go away, mouse cursor, where are you? If you zoom in, it is getting a bit, it's getting a bit empty, and we don't have an answer to that yet. Of course, sure, I can go in and I can say, well, we have a ton more clutter than we have right now. Like we have those rocks and those things. Let's not do the rock. Let's do this, just those 3 things. And I go and say, okay, let's brush them not roadside with a lot of density. And I'm like, let's do this. That was a lot of density, so it's going to... that's a weird district. It's still too much. Like, the question is, we personally, artistically, we haven't found an answer yet to what else can you do that you can put between those buildings. Is it just, let me undo this once more. Is it just a question of texture? That actually, let me see if the texture works better if I do it at 100% scale. No, I don't think so. I think texture is not the, maybe a sand texture? No. Texture is not particularly the answer to it. There is something's missing. We haven't figured out what is missing. And once we know that, we will put it in there. But the reason I was laughing is because we actually thought about what if we had pedestrians or people walking around along the streets. What if we had those things and add them in there? And we might try it, but we will see. We will see. Guys, shoot your final questions. It's getting 10 p.m. here in Vienna, and I can feel my throat slowly but surely giving up. I think I've demoed everything that I wanted to. Who should we challenge in the first City Builder Challenge, Till or Guy? That's a really good question. Actually, who should Ilya challenge in the first City Builder Challenge? That's a. I wanted to say someone has to challenge Ilya, but you're right. In that case, it has to be Guy, because I know that I'm going to lose against Ilya. He's such a good city map maker already. Thank you, Copper. You remembered your question. What are the features missing before you would turn your attention towards World Editor again? Right. Okay. So, as I said before, one major feature that's missing, and that is work. Like, we're not talking about mini update stuff. We're talking about the big chunks. One big chunk is bringing the brushes, bringing the paths, which is even more necessary than brushes, into a unified library. That's a big one. We need to do this, and we might start with the process. We hope that we have all of it ready by November the 30th. We can't promise it. Those things might come later, which means those things we want to finish before we hand it, before we switch to the world map editor. Next thing is we want to generally revisit the UIs and UI panels of all those things. So for a beta, if we hand out a UI that has a lot of toggles, I think that's fine. But there is a specific cleanup necessary. And then it's the whole layer system. Currently, we still have those region panels in here from the world map editor, which are completely useless at the moment. But the idea is to have a proper layer system comparable to tools like, I don't know, let's say a Figma or Photoshop, where you actually have layers and where you can sort stuff, or at least see how the layers are composed, maybe even group things within the layers. And the layers management is definitely not going to happen before November the 30th. This is one of the big things that we want to do over Christmas and hopefully have finished then. Apart from that, I'm sure Ilya and Andre have other things, especially probably a lot of internal stuff that needs to be done. But purely from UI perspective and user experience perspective, I think I think that's it. Okay, question number 2. What are the final touches you think about regarding the world map editor? Okay. The way that let's go through the tools. So first of all, the way that we do coastlines in the city map editor, I think is almost predestined to be ported over to the way that we do coastlines in the city map editor, in the world map editor. However, the world map editor has some sort of perspective, which we need to work with and figure out how we can do this on a world map editor. But this is definitely, generally speaking, the way that we create landmasses is not very satisfying right now, and we're going to rework the landmass tool. When it comes to props, I think the new prop brush that creates props in a specific area is quite helpful. I think we can use this to create, I don't know, grass patches, forests, whatever, through this tool. However, one big thing that's still missing, and we already have some prototypes in that regard, that we just want to pick up, is the biomes tool. And we're definitely going to do the biomes tool before we call the world map editor finished. Next is roads. Well, I mean, it's a very rudimentary road system in a world map editor, but I think it kind of fulfills its purpose for now. However, paths, we definitely want paths in there. I'm not sure for what, we will see. But I think paths will be a good addition to the world map editor, and we will definitely come up with some good ideas for it. Maybe we are going to do something with paths, or something generative around the, I've said it before, political borders. Brushes, yes, I've already said we definitely want to have texture brushes and not just color brushes in the world map editor. So that is something that is going to be ported over. I don't think that we need to do a lot about the text tool. I don't think that we need to do a lot about the eraser, apart from unification. I think if we have an eraser tool, it should erase not just props and paths and brushes, but there should be options for props, paths, brushes. So you should toggle all the tools in there. Lighting, we are going to experiment with it because we're interested to see what it can do. However, I'm fairly certain that shadowing does not work in the world map editor. So there will be we definitely port post effects, and there will be some options for post effect lighting, but to what degree of detail, I do not know yet. I think that's it. Can't come up with anything else. I mean, there's still a lot to do, and we had a few chats about the estimates of how much work is still left. Now, I think if alpha and beta testing for the city map maker are successful, and we have January or February to switch over to world map making, then I'm quite confident that on our next anniversary stream, we will talk about the beta release of the world map editor, together with the beta release, with then an improved beta of the city map editor, which brings us really, really close to having a proper tool for artists. But By then, we hopefully have the asset manager integrated, which then leaves us just open for the battle map editor to find its way in there. And that is something that we are going to discuss internally, because there are ideas whether or not we can use the city map maker to actually turn it into a world map maker, to have it all in one software. However, the discrepancies between the tools would be so vast that it might be like a kind of internal product cannibalization where we actually compete in products, which doesn't make sense. So let's see. But City Map Maker and World Map Maker, I'm quite confident that next year in our anniversary stream, we're kind of celebrating the full beta of Project Days. Reminder, you and Till, I am Till, teased giveaways during this stream. You might be confusing this with next week's mapping it out, because unfortunately I haven't prepped any giveaways for today. I know that Guy and I have been prepping giveaways for the Map Battle Madness. But I haven't prepped any giveaways for tonight, so my apologies. It's the release dates and the amazing new things that I can make you happy with, hopefully. The final, I'm not going to answer that copper sheet. The final release is when version 6 of the Battle Map Editor is ready to be integrated into Deus, and there are hopes, which would be yes 2025, and there are fears, which might be, I don't know how much the rework of the Battle Map Editor to version 6 actually takes. Okay. Dear community, dear friend, thank you for sticking with me for I don't know, 3 hours. What did we do? 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 3 hours. Well, it's 5 years anniversary. We should make it 5 hours. So thank you. Happy anniversary, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. I have been looking through some of your profiles on the community hub, and many of you who are in stream today are actually like, you're veterans, you're DungeonFog veterans, and you can be proud of that. I'm super proud of having you in our community. And with that said, I thank you all for attending. I wish you a happy anniversary. And as always, happy map making. Bye.